What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to our double feature Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. We've got NXT Battleground and AEW Double or Nothing that just went down at the same time. So we got a lot of pay-per-view stuff to break down here. I'm your host as always, Tony Mango, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
I watched one of these shows.
You watched one of them, and you didn't have to balance out all the tabs like I did, so you're going to hear a much more dedicated point of view from Callum for one of these. And then you're going to hear I was doing this and this and this and this and this and this throughout the whole back and forth of everything else. But I want to know what everybody else has to say as well. Don't think that it's just tied down to what Callum and I have for our opinions. I want your opinions out there in the live chat if you are able to join us live. And if you're not joining us live, then toss your thoughts in the comment section below on YouTube. And as per always, I want to have that whole setup of, if you like a video on YouTube, then like the video. It's pretty self-explanatory, but hit the share button as well. Make sure that you're also hitting the thanks button to toss a little spare change our way. Same thing as the super chats for anybody that's able to join for the live super chat things. The join button next to the subscribe button, which if you don't see that you are subscribed, click on that. Also has that little notification bell, so that way you know when we go live for things like this. But the join button gives you access to the same thing as the Patreon, so the Darkcast, the Pick Your Poison tier, or even just the $1 a month tier. All that stuff is all tied into helping Smark Moment and Fanboys Anonymous. And obviously, if you want some merchandise, go to TeePublic and Redbubble. And, I'm just going to do some of those plugs ahead of time right off the bat to get them out of the way because we're going to bounce around so much. I did mention Fanboys Anonymous, so go to fanboysanonymous.com. Check out the Blue Brand, follow on Facebook and Twitter, and check out the YouTube channel. Do everything there that you would do for here, like subscribe, and obviously the same thing with the Patreon and all. Check out the Blueprint Project over there. I've got Chapter 4 of the Batman and Nighttime story is going to be coming up on Monday morning. Tomorrow morning, I should say. So check out Head of the Demon for the next part of Volume 1. And let's start getting into this kind of stuff here. Now, since it is two pay-per-views that happen simultaneously, obviously there's a lot of this was happening at the same time as this and all. But I think that the most efficient way of doing this is to probably knock out all of Battleground and then knock out Double or Nothing. So for anybody who's really here just to listen to Double or Nothing, honestly, it's going to be quick to get through Battleground because not too much to talk about in my perspective. And for those that are here predominantly for NXT Battleground, sorry, there just wasn't a whole lot as much to talk about. So let me switch over a little bit here and go with the graphic here that it's just primarily Battleground. I see Michael's in the chat. I see Dane's in the chat. What's up, everybody? I've been to funerals with more energy than the Vegas crowd. Damn. Everything Moxley does looks phony as hell. Someone tell him to stop giving people the finger. It's old. So we will get into Double or Nothing. But now, Callum, you did not watch NXT Battleground, and I've been told by some people that this was the best show in a long, long time. But of course, that person was just bitching that I wasn't making everything the priority that they wanted. So, big little finger to that person. What's up, Adam, in the chat? But have you checked any of the stuff that happened on here, Callum? Like, you just checked out the results or anything?
No, I don't even know what happened on it.
All right, so Jinder Mahal turned babyface, and this started off with Wesley retaining the North American Championship over Tyler Bate and Joe Gacy. I don't have anything to say about that pretty much whatsoever. It just seemed like it was a fine match. And that's where I get into a lot of the other things where it's like, yeah, it was fine from what I saw. Of course, at the same time, that's when they are getting into the Battle Royal. So I am trying to pay attention to all the people getting into the Battle Royal and eliminated and all. So we'll talk about the Battle Royal in a little bit. They had a little thing earlier in the night during the kickoff where Oro Mensah was flown in from, a first class ticket and a fancy hotel room and all from Noam Dar to try to have him be his second in that match for the Heritage Cup. The Heritage Cup championship match was actually in Noam Dar's favor. He ended up with a 2-1 lead over Dragon Lee. primarily because not only did Oro Mensah show up and then help get involved and all, but so did Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. So we might have a stable here with Noam Dar, Oro Mensah, Lash Legend, and Jakara Jackson. I don't really know if that's the best thing in the world, but Noam Dar retained. I didn't see that one coming. Any thoughts on those? I know you didn't watch them, but
I'm literally not going to talk because I don't care about any of this stuff that you're talking about. So.
You interrupt if you feel like it. I'll put it that way then.
I will not interrupt.
The last man standing match between Dijak and Ilja Dragunov was pretty good. I mean, as expected, they beat the crap out of each other. They had some good spots here and there. Nothing, honestly, that I can be like, oh, and this one spot was really good, or this one thing was really brutal. They did things like, Dijak attacked him with the kendo stick and just kept hitting him in the corner and all. And of course, Dragunov ended up a little bit bloody with his chin. So I'd say it's worth going back and checking this, but it's not something that's going to stand the test of time. And it's not going to be a moment that I remember for the end of the year awards or anything. Dragunov comes out victorious there. They had a backstage segment where Duke Hudson brought Charlie Dempsey and Drew Gulak in for a guest lecture, and Thea Hale got all upset and left. Duke Hudson said, you better have a better lesson planned for next week. So they're going to continue that going on. Still nothing about Andre Chase. For some reason, we're getting NXT Great American Bash on July 30th as a premium live event, because you have to have it as a pay-per-view at the end of the month instead of having it on the July 4th edition of NXT. I don't understand the philosophy behind that. If I were in their shoes, I'd be like, all right, the July 4th edition is the Great American Bash, and the July 30th show is In Your House or Heat Wave, whatever it might be, but we'll be covering that down the line. I pretty much exclusively paid attention to AEW during the NXT Tag Team Championship match between Gallus and the Creed Brothers, because at this point it was the TNT Championship ladder match, and that was not only more fun, but more stuff was happening there. So I missed a good portion of this, but what I did see did not seem like it was something that needed to be on this card whatsoever. And it ended with Ivy Nile getting involved to offset Joe Coffey, only for Ava Rain to come out. So it's basically what we had said was probably going to happen. Did. Gallus retains. Lyra Valkyria and Tiffany Stratton were up next. Again, too many things for me to focus on, because at this time they were doing a AEW Women's World Championship. So again, you're basically kind of doubling up on a lot of that. And I wasn't really into the Lyra Valkyria Tiffany Stratton thing to begin with either, so that was working against it too. I'm still updating Great American Bash at the time. So I bypassed this. And I know that some people probably were into this because the NXT crowd was hot. And it seemed like they were kind of into it, although they were chanting for NXT rather than for like Valkyria. Maybe they did at other parts that I missed. I don't know. Michael Patrick, yeah, the chat too. NXT crowd was hot though. Tiffany Stratton comes out with the win. She hits her moonsault, gets the pin. So that's not all that shocking, and neither is Carmelo Hayes retaining over Bron Breakker in what seemed like a good match. But again, a match that was just sort of a good match, and then you move on. And if you missed it, I don't think you missed anything. So it sounds like, yeah, I'm just brushing through here because Battleground was the smaller, lesser pay-per-view, but it also had less going on for it. The only thing that really changed was Tiffany Stratton won the vacated title, which that's because it was vacated. And the rest was just sort of there. It was fine. Some of it was good. None of it seemed great to me. So that's Battleground. I honestly don't think that we're going to be like, oh man, if this would have been a dedicated thing, we would have gone on for 2 hours about this one anyway. It was a show and it was fine. Let's get into Double or Nothing, though. There we go. This is so much more efficient.
Yeah. Well, that worked out.
Yeah. So, Double or Nothing, obviously a longer pay-per-view with more to unpack and more that happened on there. And not just because it's, for anybody that's going to do the whole argument of like, why are you doing this? Crapping on WWE instead of... We don't do that thing here. We're honest. And Dean Lawson in the chat here, NXT was the best show of the weekend, to be honest. to each their own too. If you're watching both and you liked one or the other, again, let me know what I'm missing out on too, because I'm sure that there's stuff that I missed out on. Oh, Teddy the Greek with the super chat. Thank you, Teddy. Great show, guys. Discovered Smark and Moment through WZR radio back in the day. Who's getting inducted into the the Fuck That Guy Club next? Was the AEW pay-per-view 5 hours long?
Oh, it was the guy singing Wild Thing. It's the next
that's it's an option for sure if we did that, because we'll talk about that. That was pissing me off. I don't know if I had said shout out to Adam in the chat for saying what's up, but if I didn't, then there you go. If I did, you get to right in a row. Thank you, Teddy, for this super chat here. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. But the AEW pay-per-view it started off at 7:00 and ended pretty much just a few minutes ago. So, that's pretty standard for AEW. They tend to go up until around midnight. And that was all the more reason why I was like, okay, well, we're not going to be able to do an NXT Battleground post-show during the main event of Double or Nothing. And if I would have tried, it would have just taken away the two best parts of the night in my mind. So, not to spoil exactly how I'm feeling about that, but the buy-in only had one match for it this time. And I think that was like a saving grace, because I was like, oh my God, I'm trying to juggle a whole lot. Also, screw the people that I ordered from tonight to get pizza. It was supposed to deliver at 7:05, ended up getting at 7:55. So I spent the entire time trying to do that, and it wasn't even all that good. So, I'm into pizza. No, not going to do that anymore. The buy-in, get a little bit of water in there, had the Ethan Page and the Guns match against Hook and the Hardy Boys because of Isaiah Cassidy not being in the match and being replaced by Hook. That match was a match. It was fine. Sounds like I'm copping out, but I don't know what else to say about there. Do you have anything else to chime in about that?
I'm not particularly. Like, it was there were some good spots, but it was mainly just, the Hardys doing what the Hardys do, which is their moves, but a lot slower than they used to.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a spot that I thought was a botch with Hardy going for the Whisper of the Wind and falling off. It turns out he was actually selling an ankle injury, so he actually meant to fall off the top rope like that. So I'll give him credit for. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for that, rather than saying it was a complete botch. But yeah, it went the way that we expected it to. Hook tapped Ethan Page out to the Red Rum, and that means that they now own Ethan Page's contract. So this contract palaver must continue.
And he being Tony Khan, has a real fascination with that revolving around Matt Hardy, doesn't he? It's like the one story. He's had more feuds with contracts than he had with actual wrestlers.
Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see. I think it's probably. I mean, I can't say for certain because there's a lot of things that confuse me a little bit. But maybe this is in the lead up to an Ethan Page babyface turn. Being part of the group.
I didn't see that as a potential, but then again, I haven't been paying too much attention to this feud because this one's definitely one of my blind spots that I'm just not all that interested in going forward. You were talking about, awkwardness and botches and all. This wasn't a botch, but it was awkward. The Martha Hart announcement they were calling it the opening ceremonies of the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, where she, more than anything else, was like, we're getting a little gangster here. And then Tony Khan came out in what was supposed to be a gangster hat. what was this?
Yeah, again, I'm as confused.
This was just
it was just an announcement. It was just an announcement that it's happening soon. Like, I would have preferred it if they were announced, like, even if it was just like the first match or the first matches that would be taking place. But it was just there to just let people know it's coming. It's coming up soon, so people don't forget about it. So it's fine.
I think they would have been better off just having Excalibur go, and by the way, that's happening, and then moving on, because this was just pretty cringy in my mind. But then we started to get people coming in for their entrances of the Blackjack Battle Royal for the next 10 minutes worth of stuff. And they Let me get some of this stuff on here because I actually copied and pasted this into the wrong spot. Okay, now we're back into there. We started off with like the varsity athletes and everybody kind of goes through and all, but a lot of people didn't actually get into the ring at the beginning of this. And it took a while for people to get into the ring. Some of them waited until 8 or so people had been eliminated beforehand. And I don't know if that's partially because they were just like, look, there's too many people and we don't want to have everybody lose focus. We want to kind of like move them along, as now it's the time that Brian Cage is going to do a bunch of stuff. And well, now it's where Strickland's going to get involved and all that. Some of it I think worked out pretty well. And then some of it, of course, was just kind of killing time. But overall, I really like this battle royal. I like battle royals. And this had some fun movements here and there. I don't quite understand why Commander wasn't eliminated when he was on the ropes and then jumped to the outside and then just came back in, and it was like fine.
It's because Excalibur was very keen to point out on commentary that in order to be in the match, as it were, you had to have put both feet in the ring to basically then be able to be thrown out. So Commander had never stepped foot in the ring when he did the move.
Okay, all right. So
because he walked the ropes.
Technicality, then, yeah. He wasn't pulling like a Mil Mascaras.
No.
All right, so I didn't catch that thing. That's, again, it's the hard thing when you're trying to balance out, trying to obviously do double the live coverage on double the website, so then they start changing titles and all that. But this had some fun moments here and there where like Ricky Starks was trying to save himself, and Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy and Trent Beretta had a whole lot of miscommunication here. Chuck and Trent both ended up getting eliminated through a miscommunication with Orange Cassidy. I don't know if that's going to lead to something down the line, but
I mean, I would say Trent like almost sacrificed himself to save Orange Cassidy rather than a miscommunication. Really,
yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Yeah, Chuck was more of the
that was definitely a miscommunication.
Orange Cassidy ducking down and just kind of whoops. Any other moments that stand out to you before we get to the finish?
I thought that this was, just as an overall, this was one of the best battle royals I've seen in a long time. And yeah, I was a little bit perturbed at the start of it with so many people just fighting around the ring, and I think there should be some kind of enforcement of people need to actually get into the ring at some point, because why would you just stand outside there for the whole match if you wanted to? But I think that overall there was a lot of like interesting moments, like obviously story driven stuff with the things that were going on with Jay White, Ricky Starks, Juice Robinson, all the luchadors teaming up with each other at the start of it to like just take everybody out, and all helping Bandito do his delayed vertical suplex on Tony Nese. That was quite fun. The miscommunications or the saving moments with the best friends. Keith Lee throwing people around a lot, having some good exchanges with Brian Cage. I thought Brian Cage looked really good in this match as well, and he has been stepping up a lot more recently ever since it became quite obvious that he's sticking around for a while to come at the very least. And yeah, Penta had some good spots. Phoenix did some cool stuff as well. And then Big Bill started killing everybody and just throwing everybody around and booting everybody out of the ring and everything. So I think it did well on China Spotlight on most of the people. And then you had the excellent like finishing sequence,
which came down to Orange Cassidy and Swerve Strickland. Between the two of them, they were battling it out. Prince Nana got involved a little bit here and there. So, that seemed like the title was potentially in jeopardy. There was a little moment where Swerve put Orange Cassidy's hands in his pockets to try to pick him up and make it easier to eliminate him, but that led to a series of tornado DDTs and all. And the ultimate end of this was Orange Cassidy just kind of like lightly taps Swerve to fall off of the apron, which is a very Orange Cassidy thing, and he retains the title. And yeah, I liked it a lot. Yeah,
it was very like good spot at the end of just like Cassidy just blocking another double foot stomp attempt on the apron with just getting his feet up, and instead of like he seemed like he was gearing up for the orange punch, but instead he just sees that Strickland's just holding on by his fingertips, so he just kicks his fingertips and he falls off. So yeah, it was a great finish, and yeah, I thought this was an excellent start to the show.
Definitely one of my more favorite matches over this whole time frame.
well, let's say that was a great start to show, and then it took an immediate nosedive. This, I just put it out there right now because we'll talk about Adam Cole versus Chris Jericho now. Adam Cole defeating Chris Jericho. If you want to know spoilers right away, this match sucked.
So I was stuck trying to pay attention again to both things, and I missed a good portion of this here and there. But the way that I had written this down was just a few notes of like Sabu's already getting involved, but then things have been relatively tame. Table spots teased, nothing's happening. I didn't like the fire extinguisher spot where Jericho had to just keep like staring at it until Cole was able to pull the trigger on it. Britt Baker came out with a kendo stick, attacked Jericho. Saray came out and Britt Baker immediately started just chasing her or whatever. But they got a chain involved that led to basically what you would normally get in like a chain match or a strap match or a dog collar match, that sort of style. And it ultimately ended with Cole hitting a Shining Wizard and then just punching Jericho enough until Aubrey Edwards stopped the match. And again, didn't have my full attention. I'm going to preface that for everything here. But what I did see, I feel like it was a little disappointing.
I'm just flat out saying that this was, as matches go, it was decent, but decent's not good enough for these two. And I know Rob's also going to hate me when I say this. I think the blame of this falls squarely on Adam Cole. I think Jericho wasn't on his ultimate A game, but that's like you can't always be at the absolute top. I think Adam Cole, considering the blood feud that was going into this and the intensity of the promos and some of the backstage segments leading into this, was really, really tame in his attacks of Jericho. And like the ending of it where he hits the boom, he drops the boom and then he does it again with a chain wrapped around his knee slightly, and then he just starts punching Jericho, but not properly like punching him, just standing over him a little bit, and Jericho's not like had his arms down both sides, but Cole's not really putting any real mustard into those punches.
And he's not even hitting him with the chain.
No, or he could have just been he could choke him with the chain or anything. It just lacked intensity. And that's the issue that I think that's had the entire match. It just ended up being a match with a few weapons in it.
Mm-hmm. And they needed to, of course, save a lot of that for the ladder match and for the anarchy in the arena. So they weren't doing anything that was like, oh, but you're beating the shit out of each other. It probably should have just been a regular match. And then if they wanted to do this kind of a thing, do that for the follow-up.
Potentially, but I think that AEW fans have demonstrated that they don't really mind having multiple weapons matches on a show, and they will like respond to it. Although this crowd, I don't know if they could respond to anything realistically. It's Las Vegas is clearly not the hotbed that it once was.
If you looked at the picture that came out of like the whole half of it being empty. That's another part too.
That's something else we can talk about. But the overall thing is that I don't say they struggled to sell tickets, but they certainly didn't sell as many. And to be fair, like that side of the building is usually a side that is pretty empty anyway, because that's the hard cam side. And like on a predominant number of both AEW shows and WWE shows and a lot of wrestling shows, that side is usually pretty empty. But yeah, overall, I thought that this was lackluster, and it doesn't really bode well for the potential Adam Cole challenging for the World Championship soon. I mean, maybe it'll be better when he goes into just a more traditional match setting with people, but I mean, realistically, this is like the third or fourth match we've seen since he's come back, and none of them have really blown me away. So maybe, and it's hard to say, but he suffered some severe injury, suffered some severe concussions. Maybe Cole just can't go like he used to anymore.
Maybe, yeah. I hope that's not the case, obviously.
No, yeah, obviously. I hope it's not. Yeah, I hope it's not. But I need to see something that demonstrates the otherwise. Like, he's still as great on the mic as ever, and he still can get. He's great as a babyface, as great as he was as a heel. But I just don't think that the in-ring product is living up to what his old standards were.
Yeah, you compare what Adam Cole is right now in AEW to what Adam Cole was during the black and gold era of NXT. There's no comparison.
Yeah.
So FTR, the next match was FTR retaining the World Tag Team Championship over Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Mark Briscoe was the special guest referee, as we mentioned before. And of course, naturally, lots of interference here from Sanjay Dutt, Saddam Singh, and Karen Jarrett. Eventually, they get ejected, and Briscoe ends up getting down from Jeff Jarrett goes for a guitar shot for Dax Harwood. Dax ducks. Jarrett hits Briscoe. That's not even as big of a deal as what happened pretty soon afterward, because FTR gets a shatter machine, and it's the typical spot of like, but the referee's down, and so nobody's able to do the count. Ref Aubrey Edwards runs down, and Sanjay stops her in enough time for Karen Jarrett to then hit Aubrey with a guitar.
Like the biggest reaction of the entire match.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it was a fine enough match. Pretty standard, generic setup. Nothing that really stood out to me outside of Aubrey taking that guitar shot. And then it ultimately ends with FTR retaining, and the right people won, and thumbs up enough. Nothing I'm going to remember in 7 months.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is about as meh a FTR match as you're probably ever going to see. And yeah, it was just a very kind of slow, old school match, what you'd expect when you're wrestling Jeff Jarrett. And yeah, it had a lot of bells and whistles attached to it. A lot of stuff going on the outside, which again, you would come to expect, but it's just a bit, it was maybe a little bit overkill. They decided to tease again, Jeff Jarrett winning with the stroke after hitting Dax with the belt, but managed to kick out. And then in the end, it's Mark Briscoe slapping Jeff Jarrett in the face, leading into the shatter machine that ends up with FTR getting the victory, and they reunite with Mark Briscoe. So yeah, that's just it. Yeah, I think you're right in saying that we're just like, yeah, it was pretty fine standard tag team match, and let's move on to what's next.
After that, they had a couple backstage segments that were all happening around the same time as other backstage segments from NXT. So I missed part of this, but from what I gather, Jay White and Juice Robinson attacked Ricky Starks, and FTR made the save. Is that right?
Yeah. So essentially, Ricky was having like a post-match promo about what was happening with Starks and Juice. They attacked him, and FTR were coming back from their match, and they chased them off.
And then after that, Jericho and Saraya were all pissed off about what happened during the unsanctioned match, so they challenged for a mixed tag team match that's going to happen on Wednesday, and then Jericho threw a fireball in the face of a stagehand.
Yep, because he's a wizard.
Yep, as one does. Then moved on to Wardlow retaining the TNT Championship in a ladder match over Christian Cage, which had some good spots here and there. The typical, drop kicking the ladder into your opponent and all. And then some weird spots, because we also had Arn Anderson biting the finger of Luchasaurus, getting blood all over the place.
Yeah, so clearly he had a blood capsule in his mouth.
Yeah.
And the thing they were trying to sell is that he bit part of Luchasaurus' thumb off. And ended up with blood all over Arn Anderson, because the blood capsule was really bit thick, and it's just it was all over the place by the end of it. They teased him getting chokeslammed by Luchasaurus, and Wardlow's able to deal with him. And then the biggest spot of the match, which didn't even involve Christian Cage, was Wardlow climbing to the top of a giant ladder on the outside and going through Luchasaurus with the Jeff Hardy Swanton Bomb.
Yeah, that was good. I like that.
Yeah, it must have the landing must have sucked, but yeah, he took it really well. And yeah, the Christian and Wardlow stuff was, as you'd expect, a bit more of the old school thing. I mean that the biggest spot was the Swanton, but I'd say the other cool spot that I remember from this match is Wardlow doing an airplane spin gorilla press, and then just throwing Christian on top of a ladder at the end of it. That was again, he's a power guy, he does that well. And then he had Christian fall off a ladder to lead the finish, fall off, land on Wardlow's shoulders, again demonstrating that strength, and hitting him with a powerbomb, climbing up and retaining the championship. So yeah, good match.
To answer Teddy's question, it wasn't green blood for Luchasaurus. Unfortunately, it was just a regular blood capsule. But that would have been better. That would have been even more fun if he would have bitten down, and it would have been like some greenish yellow fluid, and it's like that's dinosaur blood right there. I would have enjoyed that. So Dane's saying you got to play Turok again to find out what color the blood is. There was a spot during here where Wardlow was jumping onto the ladder, and the ladder got all messed up, and that looked like that could have been a real potential problem because he landed in a way that it could have like tweaked his leg or something. Christian was out for a while, and I was like, oh, don't tell me that he got like a concussion or something, because it seemed like they were filling time for a little bit there. And I'm hoping that both guys, so all parties, of course, but I'm hoping that those two are okay. And I haven't seen anything online that suggests otherwise, but maybe we'll find out that they had some kind of going on. So yeah, I'm down with Wardlow retaining. Match was good. And then what was the match after that? That was the AEW Women's World Championship.
You want to call it a match?
Well, that was Jamie Hayter defending against Toni Storm, but they started off with Toni Storm coming out and then Hayter's music playing, and then they had to dawdle a little bit because she was attacked backstage by Saraya and Ruby Soho. She comes to the ring. They start the match and whatever, and then eventually Britt Baker comes out and Hikaru Shida comes out. I am assuming that this wasn't necessarily the plan, but it was just a means to get some more action going on, so it wasn't a full-blown just, okay, we do a couple moves to Hayter and then the match is over, but that's essentially what it was. Toni Storm did a couple moves to Jamie Hayter and then pinned her. And now Toni Storm is the champion again, and I still couldn't care less because I have not been into this feud for a year.
Yeah, this whole angle thing, because it's not a match, it was just an angle, I thought was poorly executed. I think like having Jamie Hayter tease coming out, and then she does eventually come out with after being attacked by Saraya and Ruby Soho, and just gets the shit kicked out of her for like 2 minutes outside the ring before the match even starts, with just all focusing the attention on the injured arm. And then, getting in the ring, and Paul Turner, who's the worst referee, I think, going right now, let alone in AEW.
We have a debate in the chat going on right now between Nick Patrick, was it Mike Knox, I think, Aubrey Edwards. I mentioned that referee I think it was like Natty against AJ Lee, that one that botched the end of that match, Yeah.
But it's just there. But he just says, "Okay, you're good to go," and then just like, it's like, no, her arm is basically hanging off of the ligament essentially. But like, I don't really always buy into this whole fighting gutsy babyface thing. It just be smart. They've attacked you before. You don't have to defend your title, and nobody would expect you to defend your title. But besides, go with it anyway. And then it's just all this BS with Hikaru Shida coming out and Britt Baker coming out to take people out. But why are they coming out both one at a time and like minutes apart from each other? And then Tony eventually hits the Storm Zero after Jamie Hayter gets sprayed in the face. And, it's like, I can understand the reasoning behind wanting to put all this together, because clearly Jamie's injured and so she couldn't work properly. So you had to do all this other stuff on the outside as well. But it all just looked like really rushed and poorly put together. And yeah, it ends up with Toni Storm as a champion. I think she's a fine choice to be the AEW Women's World Champion if Jamie Hayter can't defend for the time being. And also can set in motion the idea of them having another match at All-In where you can have Jamie Hayter as the triumphant British wrestler recapture the women's title from Toni Storm after being put on the shelf for a while. So yeah, I think in the end, like, it will justify it taking place. I just think that they probably, I honestly would have preferred it just a case of like Jamie Hayter comes out and she's just really badly hurt the arm. Tony goes after it for 2 or 3 minutes, like just goes on the assault, and Jamie tries to fight it back as best as she could, but then she just gets beaten just like clean. I don't think you needed to have all these smoke and mirrors attached to it.
And the idea that this could just be, okay, we're going to do Hayter versus Storm at All In. I'd be like, I don't want to watch this feud anymore. I want to move on to something else. In particular, I want to move on to somebody else turning babyface and doing something, but we'll get to that in a few. Yeah, you're going to hear me, Brock Lesnar, rule this from until they're done. I'm just, They need to do something else for me to be entertained. I'm not digging this feud, and none of these steps that they've been doing have been making me go, I'm second guessing. It's just the same shit. So Tony Storm's champion. I like Tony Storm. Okay, whatever. Moving on, the World Trios titles were on the line in another open house challenge. House of Black against the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. Max Caster had a great line here. Buddy acts all ominous, but he's getting cucked by a kid named Dominic.
Yeah, that was good. I also like the how you called House of Black when there's not a black guy in it. That kind of line as well.
So, from my perspective, while I was doing a lot of NXT updating around this time, it seemed like Max Caster was not in the match like at all. What happened there?
He was just very rarely in it. Like the whole match was built around the House of Black did a excellent job of keeping Anthony Bowens in the ring and away from his partners. So they were occasionally on the apron. Like Billy was more often on the apron because they were constantly getting knocked down as well as like hanging around there for a little while. It was just mainly due to the fact that whenever Bowens got anywhere close to the apron, they'd already either taken his teammates out or they they were able to like cut him off before doing it. So it was basically the whole psychology of the match is Bowens is getting beaten up and he can't make it to his partners, and then when he eventually is able to make it there, only Billy Gunn is on the apron. Yeah,
I like every time I would turn around, I mean, my eyes would adjust to one of the other three screens. I just only saw Billy Gunn on the apron, so I was just like, did Caster get taken out in some fashion? Was he was there like an injury angle? Like I just missed him being gone for the whole thing, and eventually Malachi Black gets his kick in on Billy Gunn, and they retain the titles. There really isn't all that much more for me to talk about, at least.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's one of those things that if in front of a better crowd, they would have done a better job of selling that Bowens had been struggling for minutes and minutes and minutes to get to the corner, and then is able to make the tag. And then Billy Gunn's in there for like a minute and does like two Fame Asses to a great sell of the Fame Master by Brody King, by the way. He basically flips inside out while doing it, and then he just gets kicked in the face and loses. So, the House of Black retains, as they should do. They should continue being the champions for a while longer. But I thought it was decent for what it was.
The next match, now this is something for us to really dive a little bit deeper into, was the TBS Championship match. Jade Cargill successfully retaining over Taya Valkyrie. Couple good pops from the crowd when they thought that the face stomp, and then in particular the best pop of the whole thing was Taya hits her finisher, gets a very close near fall, and then in typical fashion, because move on, whatever, pro wrestling is the way that it is. 10 seconds later, Jade's perfectly fine, and not only is she like up from taking this finisher, but she is able to hit her finisher and gets the pin, and she's 60-0. I never like when they do that in matches where it's like, oh my god, you just nearly got me, but I am perfectly fine now. Now I'm gonna hit my finisher, and now it's the end of the match. I know that a lot of times that gets booked that way because they just want to kind of keep the energy going, and they want to transition into like, whoa, 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 now it's the end of the match. But to me, that just sort of makes it a little bit, suspension of disbelief gets a little too high, that you were a split second away from being pinned, and now you're in charge, and now the other person's done. But Mark Sterling, I should say, cut a promo afterward about Jade Cargill 60-0. She's beaten everybody. There's nobody left. And then out comes Chris Statlander, and there's an impromptu extra title match, which Statlander pretty much immediately wins. And Cargill's taking her first loss. Statlander's the new champion. Overall, yeah, I like it.
So the Cargill Taya match, I think, was one of Jade's better matches since her debut. I think it was pretty back and forth, and it was good for her to match up with somebody that could like tee up with her on a power stance. And I thought they had some good moments and some decent, just overall decent wrestling between the two of them, like the suplex on the outside, and Taya with the stomp was great, and Jade sold that really well. I don't really agree about the finish being out of nowhere. Like Tyre had knocked her out, and she was selling the fact that she kicked out for a few seconds, and then she did get Jade up for like onto her shoulders in a fireman's carry. Jade fought out of that, kicked her in the face, and then hit the move with her. So it wasn't like, oh, she just got up immediately after being hit and then just hit her with it. So I'm totally fine with that being the finish. That's how a lot of wrestling matches finish. But yeah, then Chris Statlander coming out. As I said, I thought that Statlander would be the right choice to beat Jade Cargill. I just was curious about like how long it would take to happen. Decided that it was going to happen tonight instead. And yeah, she immediately beats her. You get the whole monkey of your back with the undefeated streak, and now she can move on. And now we have a new TBS champion for the first time ever, really, outside of like obviously the first time that Jade won it. So yeah, it's an interesting direction. I'm not so super keen about the whole, she like Chris Statlander's supposed to be the babyface, and she just came out and fought Jade after she'd already had a match and just beat her quickly for it. But then again, like she's not going to turn down if Mark Sterling is issuing an open challenge, she's not going to turn it down, is she? So yeah, it's a welcome change for the TBS Championship.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where they go going forward, because for a little while, Statlander was one of our options as like, maybe she's going to be the next in line and maybe they're waiting for her, or, maybe they were waiting for the 60-0. That could have been another thing. Maybe they wanted to get to that point before they ended up having that. I think maybe they were thinking maybe 50-0 more so. But we finally have the ability to play around with this belt a little bit more. And that opens up what I was saying before. I want eventually down the line for them to, whether it's a few weeks from now, a few months from now, I want Cargill to turn babyface and be the one that beats Toni Storm.
No.
What are you hoping for? Just that Jamie Hayter wins it all out or all in? I mean,
yeah, it's the better story, and she's a much better wrestler than Jade Cargill is. They're going to have. I'd rather. Again, I know we're kind of on different perspectives here. I'd rather have a great match at All In rather than, the quote unquote star who doesn't have great matches win it instead. So, that's just my perspective. You can obviously, you're more than welcome to have a different point of view, but I'm cool with the idea of Jade turning babyface and then like taking out her frustrations on other people. But I think she's not good enough in a work rate company to be the world champion.
I'm just over the whole thing to continue to do the same. Yeah, I think if he goes back to Hayter, then we're just gonna have Hayter drop it to Saraya, then we're just gonna have her drop it to Britt, and then I kind of want them to like institute something new in here. And yeah, I mean, maybe that's not for a while. Maybe that's something to come down way down the line or something. I don't know. But that's my current prediction, is that she's going to be the next champion. Let's see what we got after that. That was the 4 Pillars match, right? Yeah. All right. So here's where things really kicked up. And it's not just because NXT Battleground was pretty much done at that point and I could actually focus 100%, but the 4 Pillars 4-way match. Sorry for the fucking siren that's happening out here. The whole MJF defending against Sammy Guevara, Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, and Darby Allin thing started off with their entrances, which one was pretty standard, just Jungle Boy's entrance. One, I don't understand why this was the direction, but Darby Allin's entrance was him beating up a guy that had MJF's face like as like a printout just on it and around Elvis and all. I know that they're in Las Vegas, and obviously there's the whole Elvis kind of impersonator thing when it comes to Vegas, but why is he attacking a guy with an MJF thing at a thing there? And
because it was, well, again, you can say whether it was good or not, but the reason that they did that is because it was meant to be mocking the fact that MJF's fiance left him. Because it was an Elvis impersonator, because an Elvis impersonator usually does the wedding service, and he was talking about, oh, when's your bride turning up? And then Darby turns up and beats the shit out of MJF.
I'm not an Elvis fan to begin with, but on top of that, I just didn't like this. I thought it was pretty dumb. But I did like Sammy Guevara's entrance. He came out with Ty, and they had their little poster board cards that he used to do during like the mostly like the pandemic and like during the commercial breaks and all. And he revealed that Ty's pregnant. So they're going to have a kid. That's awesome. Congrats for them.
Yeah, congrats to them, yeah.
And that actually factored into a fun part of this match too, which I'll say this. This 4 Pillars match is on my match of the year list for AEW. This match was fucking great.
Yeah. It's one of the best 4-ways I've ever seen.
And they killed it from start to finish. Like MJF's entrance was pretty cool. And then they just did a series of moves back and forth constantly where we had multiple different things. Like I really like this one sequence where they all hit moves that their mentor does. So like Darby Allin hits a Scorpion Death Drop. Sammy hits a Code Breaker on Darby Allin. Jungle Boy hits a Kill Switch. And then MJF hits a Crossroads. I really like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you say what you will about the build up to it, and I'd say that was very hit or miss. But these guys clearly put a lot of thought into this match and decided to just go all out, telling the different aspects of their character and story as well. And you had those cool spots, like you say, the mentor spot, the whole 4-way submission, like almost like a fucking human centipede type thing with the way they were going around each other. But yeah, loads of dives to the outside, like Darby hitting his like massive cannonballs out to the ring. But then there was the one where he goes for the cannonball dive and Sammy catches him in a cutter going on that as well. That was a gnarly looking spot. And then you get to the really cool things, which are like the little details between all of them, which is MJF and Darby constantly trading headlock takeovers, because that's the entirety of what their feud is kind of based upon, is that headlock takeover. And then you have the moment that you were alluding to, which is the whole MJF gets on the microphone towards like the back end of the match and is exhausted, and he says to Sammy, "Listen, you got a kid coming on the way. You need the money. Lay down for me." Yeah,
and that's a really good way of incorporating that, because yeah, you first thing you would think of when you're having a kid, you know, I would assume would be like, do we have the money? Oh my God, how are we going to do this and all? So I don't know if that was something that they originally had planned from the very start of this feud, that she's known well enough into that they could be like, hey, let's play into that a little bit. Or if this was a call pretty much towards this week or whatever it might be. But whenever they made that decision, that was a great call. I thought that was awesome. Because of course, Sammy's like, yeah, you know, I do need the money and all. And he goes to lay down and it's a ruse and he tries to get him with a roll up and all. So that was another series of a bunch of different pinning attempts and all. That was really good. Very well executed with that. And then the series of the interlocking submissions was really good. And Guevara did a good Spanish fly from onto Darby, onto crashing through MJF and Jack Perry. Good power bomb from MJF off the top rope to Darby Allin.
Yeah, he did the whole Chris Candido blonde bombshell move. There was a lot of there was a moment towards the end where they were all like trading punches, like the whole New Japan spot, and obviously MJF hates New Japan, so what he does is he's about to line up for that other shot, and he's like just thumb them all in the eye and say like "fuck you" to the audience, and then they all take him out with a series of power moves, and then they're all trading like different pin attempts on each other, and like this all action sequence. MJF gets in the ring, that he realizes that he can use weapons, so he starts low blowing people. He goes to the diamond ring, then Darby hits him with a skateboard, and then it leads to the final moments of the match, which are MJF brings the title belt into the ring, and Sammy manages to throw him out of it and it leaves Jungle Boy holding the title instead. And so he's looking at Darby in the other corner. He's holding the title, and he's thinking about, oh, do I essentially sell my soul to win the world title? And it's the whole Sami Zayn spot about like, should I hit him with it? And there's the whole Adam Page with CM Punk as well. It's like, no, I'm not going to be that guy. So he drops the title on the floor, tries to win it the right way. Darby almost gets the pin on him from that, and then Jungle Boy gets taken out pretty quickly off that with both like go to hell, and then Darby takes Sammy out. Darby then climbs up to go for the coffin drop on Jungle Boy. MJF lays the title on top of Jungle Boy, so he lands on him, but he also just gets taken out because he just lands on the title. And then the perfect finish, he headlock takeovers Darby into the pin just to round that up. It's such a well thought out match that I can't really fault it in any way. Just the amount of attention to detail they put into it has to be commended, and just obviously the attention to detail has to be paired up with excellent wrestling, and this was excellent wrestling throughout. So yeah, even though I was very lukewarm on this based on the build, they completely won me over by the end. So kudos to all four men, they were fantastic.
Yeah, the rocky setup of all the different choices that they made getting into this feud, notwithstanding, this segment itself, fucking awesome. So I was like, hey, this is great. Like, I'm really digging this and all. And then we're going to go into the Anarchy in the arena match, which I was really looking forward to. And eventually, yeah, I really was a big fan of the Anarchy in the arena match, but it took a while for that to happen because they did the thing again of having Wild Thing playing for over and over and over for the beginning of this match. And I know that people thought that it was fantastic the last time, and it was this like super, hey, we haven't really seen that happen before type thing. Already the fact that they started doing it was annoying to me because I was like, you're trying to capture lightning in a bottle again. It's not working. But whoever it was that was performing this, I don't know if they're like a great band outside of it or what. This was an off night or if this is their regular thing. I was not digging this performance at all. And it kept fucking going. And I know that I'm not the only person that thought that this was annoying as all hell too, because I saw plenty of reactions online, like shout out to one of my former colleagues saying, I'll give them $50 to shut this fucking thing off already. I was just like, my God, it's getting to a point where I'm about to mute my TV if they don't do something and they don't finally beat the crap out of this guy and end this. And eventually there's a super kick spot and the guy stops and whatever. And then I was like, okay, now I can get into the match. Cause yeah, it's a kind of obnoxious to just kind of keep hearing noise when I've had 5 hours worth of this and the NXT thing at the same time. I'm like, I really kind of want to shut it all off anyway, but you guys are driving me crazy. And this is a match I was excited to see. So I didn't get into this until after they stopped the music. Everything leading up to that, I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened.
I mean, it was mainly a lot of brawling around ringside anyway, so there wasn't anything like too spectacular. The only thing in the note that I remember while the thing was playing is they did there's two things. One, they had Bryan Danielson slide down a banister and get hit into a trash can, which was funny. And then they did the whole like spot with all the elite doing punches in the corner to all the Blackpool Combat Club, and then them all diving to the outside.
Oh, that's right. The four topes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they kicked the guy. I agree. That was I understand what they tried to do, and I don't think like repeating the same thing they did last year was maybe the right course of action, or they should have made a twist on it. Maybe like my idea was they start playing it and then they just switch to some other song that the elite start playing instead. But yeah, and they kicked the guy. Like it was a poor performance, and as a suggestion for that guy moving forward, probably don't wear a mask and paint combo that makes you look like you're blacking up.
Oh, so many people were like, "Why is this guy doing blackface right now?" Yep, that was another part.
Yeah, probably try and avoid doing that in future. Maybe. I don't think the reputation of that band is going to come out of this show particularly any stronger than it was going into it. So. But yeah, then as soon as the music stopped, it all like ramped up. There was so much violence and blood. I mean, it's hard to keep track of all the spots that were happening. Like, interestingly, one of the things that we haven't talked about is that they had the announce table at ringside for this show, which they never do.
You think there was any particular reason for that?
So they could have people in this match go into the announce table, I think.
Just
and
that?
Also they could have a Don Callis closer to ringside, I think, as well.
I mean, maybe it was for the Callis part, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have just ran in as it was.
Yeah,
so.
True. But yeah, there was just so much happening. Like you had like suplexes, like by Moxley onto Omega onto the glass and barbed wire thing on the outside, and had Claudio swinging Matt Jackson around the backstage into a trash can, and then pile driving him into a pickup truck. All while there's like tons of submissions going on in the ring, and just weapons being thrown around the place, and everyone's bleeding. It's for the most part, well, probably for like 2/3 of this match, it was Blackpool Combat Club on top until what was probably the most shocking spot. Well, there's two shocking spots in this entire match to me that I just like kind of both either came out of my seat for or just winced entirely. And they both involve Matt Jackson. The first was the exploding shoe.
Yeah, I like that. That was cool. That it's like, hey, it didn't look terrible like the other exploding barbed wire deathmatch thing.
Yeah. Well, I like the fact that they built up to it as well, because they did the thing of because he was in like a half Boston Crab on Nick Jackson, and they'd already Page, I think it was either Page or Omega, had already tried to kick Moxley off, and Moxley was saying, nah, fuck off, and he was just keeping hold of it. And so, you had to power up the foot, and you do that by making it explode. But then, obviously, Blackpool Combat Club decide, okay, well, we're not going to deal with this shit anymore, and so Claudio takes it off of him, and then he's atomic dropped into the thumbtacks on a bare foot, and that made me wince.
Oh, every time that they do anything with these thumbtacks, I'm just kind of like, nope, not what. No, I wouldn't do it.
I mean, I can kind of like rationalize back, because I just think there's a lot of area there, and I think like it would be painful, certainly, but like I can kind of rationalize that one. The foot, there's just so much webbing there. Mm-hmm. It just like feels like, oh, like I can't, like it like makes me gag when I think about like paper cuts between the fingers when I watch like Jackass doing that sort of stuff. Like, oh, that's like terrible. And there were some other spots with like towards the thumbtacks as well, and they were kind of like strewn all over the ring at the end of it. There's a couple of criticisms I have this match before we get to the finish, but overall I really enjoyed this. But a couple of criticisms. Of course, the music at the start like just was annoying, and then the other two other things. One, cameras missing things. Mm-hmm. There was just too much stuff going on. The cameras were just like all over the place, and they were just missing spots left, right, and center. To their credit, most of the time they gave us a replay, but it was just like haphazard, to say the least. And the other thing is, again, the referee was Paul Turner, and he fucking sucked because everything. And it's kind of his fault, and it's also the wrestler's fault, because there were so many free counts in this that they didn't make because it wasn't the finish of the match. Because like people were like, you had to have Willie Uta kicking out of a buckshot lariat because Claudio couldn't get there in time. And then the most egregious one of all was the German suplex that Uta hit on Omega that would have absolutely been a pinfall, except that like Hangman was like a second out from getting there at the time, and so you have to either kick him out or you have to, Paul Turner has to count him down, but he had to, you know what the spot is coming at the end. So just like overall, between the wrestlers not getting there in time to break up pinfalls, or the referee himself just not making him look stupid, that was just bad overall. But then you get to the actual finish of it, and it makes sense why they had to take it to that direction, with the Don Callis getting involved finally and tossing a screwdriver over to Willie Uta to use. And then it looks like Omega's finally going to get the victory and take out Don Callis and get the victory for the team. But who shows up but the guy that we all thought would show up, which is Konosuke Takeshita.
Mm-hmm. He attacks Kenny Omega, and with that little bit of extra help, Yuta is able to then get the pin on Kenny Omega, and Blackpool Combat Club wins.
It's super cool that I gave Yuta the win.
Yeah, I like that.
Because like he's obviously the least established guy in the Blackpool Combat Club, so to give him the victory over Kenny Omega is a big feather in the cap for him. So I'm pleased they decided to go to that route. But obviously the most interesting thing is that Takeshita's now aligned with Don Callis, and there was a big conversation on the commentary about this, about are they aligned with Blackpool Combat Club, or is it just Don Callis hates Kenny Omega and Takeshita's aligned with him. And I tend to lean towards the latter.
Right, me too.
I still think they're going to have a casual alliance with Blackpool Combat Club for at least the short term.
Mutual enemy thing, yeah.
But I think that their alliance is with Will Ospreay and United Empire. And that's the reason why they've signed Aussie Open to that, because they're part of that group. And obviously they have the relationship with New Japan anyway, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. But I also think that they'll get Will Ospreay in at some point as well.
Probably try to do United Empire against the Elite, maybe at Forbidden Door?
Yeah, I think, Forbidden Door, I'm not so sure about. I think Forbidden Door is going to just be straight up Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega, because Kenny Omega is defending the US Championship at Forbidden Door. So, and it will be against either Will Ospreay or Lance Archer, so I presume it's going to be against Will Ospreay. But in the future, definitely, what I'm most looking forward to is what they're going to do with this house. Because now it's 5-on-4. And it was the spot towards the end of it where Callis has Omega tied up with his belt and choking him, that I just thought, oh, he's coming, Ibushi's coming out, and like I was starting just like to shake a little bit, just thinking, like, oh my god, he's gonna come out. But they decided they're holding it off, and I think it's fine because you had the big turn of Takeshita on this one, so that's your big moment, and you can save the Ibushi arrival for another show to make that feel special. So, but overall, yeah, I thought this show ended. It's kind of, the show was, it's almost like the most polarizing AEW pay-per-view I think they've ever had. Whereas, like, I think it started really well and it ended fantastically. Just a lot of stuff in the middle that I wasn't super on board with.
See, I think overall that I like this more than some of the other ones they've had, and of course some of them I liked more than this one too. But as far as like polarizing go, I think that maybe All Out might end up having them.
Oh yeah. Well, that's very that ended very, very badly.
Yeah.
I think that's. But I think it's one of those ones that the highs on this show were some of the best highs that I've seen on an AEW show. Like that Fatal 4-Way is one of the best matches they've done on any AEW show.
Yeah.
And the Anakin Arena was super fun. And I thought the Battle Royal was one of the best Battle Royals I've seen them do as well. And I'd say there was a lot of fun in a lot of the other matches as well. But I just think both the Adam Cole Jericho match being such an underwhelming disappointment, the whole bullshit with the AEW Women's World Title match. And I mean, say what you will about how Jade Cargill's title run, like undefeated streak ending that quickly, that might not have been like the ideal way of doing it. So there are a few like booking decisions or a few performances that I thought left a lot to be desired. But when this pay-per-view was at its peak, it was like some of the best peaks they've had. And
that's it. That's for both of them. We actually did this in a quicker time than we normally do a lot of them. This is only an hour and 3 minutes.
we haven't got Rob talking.
Yeah, that's true. We also have 1/3 of the crew not on here.
And we didn't want to talk about NXT. I didn't want to talk. I wasn't going to talk about NXT anyway, because obviously I have no comment about it, because I can't say whether it's good or bad. If it was good, then I'm sure it was. Then I'm glad people enjoyed it. But I don't know if I'm ever going to go back to watch it anyway.
Yeah. So, of course, the fallout for this kind of stuff will be stuff that we talk about going forward into next week with the hot tags and all. Our main event for this next episode is most likely going to be a mock draft of people that have been in the Money in the Bank ladder match. We're still kind of rearranging some of the different stuff about our schedule, so we're not 100% sure about that right now, but it's probably what it's going to be. And you'll probably also get a dark cast this week from me fantasy booking a sort of ultimate King of the Ring tournament in some fashion. Again, haven't fully figured that out yet either, but of course, if you just stay tuned to smarkoutmama.com and you stay tuned to this YouTube channel, then you will see whenever those things pop up that they popped up. And the next thing that's popping up in general will be that next chapter of the Batman A Nighttime Story over on Fanboys Anonymous. So if it's Smark Out Moment or it's Fanboys Anonymous, whatever you follow under a mango tree, then one helps out the other one. So go to amangotree.com or anthonymango.com and start clicking on all those different profiles and follow and subscribe and like and share and do all that good stuff. I might do something John Wick based. I just finally got around to watching John Wick Chapter 4, so I might write out like a pitch of what I would want Chapter 5 to be or something. I don't know. Find that stuff all on my Letterboxd as well, and find me at Tony Mango, and then follow, of course, Rob, who wasn't here, at Dude Felice, but also follow Callum.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Check out the power rankings over at smarkmo.com, as well as the Fantasy League, which has now been updated, and Rob's done very well this weekend, let's put it that way.
Oh.
But yeah, you can check that over on www.fantasyleague.com and see the latest standings there.
Alrighty, everybody. That's the double shot. That's NXT Battleground. That is AEW Double or Nothing. Next pay-per-view coming up is going to be Forbidden Door. And then it's going to be Money in the Bank the week after that. And then I guess apparently NXT Great American Bash at the end of July heading into SummerSlam. So maybe they announce something else in the meantime. Maybe they don't. I don't know. But more pay-per-view point stuff coming your way then. We got more mock drafts, more fantasy booking, and some fan outs table content, and some other stuff. I don't know exactly what. So as always, if you have any other suggestions, drop them in the comments below. If you're listening to this after the fact and you weren't able to join the live chat with Frankie and Teddy and Dane and Michael and Adam and everybody else who was able to join in, then of course leave your thoughts in the comments below. And we will see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.